I don't know why that was necessary, but it was. Anyways, today we are once again in the Poetic Edda that's translated by Jackson Crawford. And we are in the Reginsmal, The Tale of Regan. And if you're in the paperback, that's on page 234. Reginsmal, literally Regan's words, is the first of a trio of poems concerned with the adventures of the young Sigurd, together with Fafnismal and Sigurfulmal. Reginsmal begins with a fairly long prose introduction, partially narrated by Regan, about the killing of Regan's brother Otter by the Aesir, and the demands by their father, Hreithmar, for a large amount of gold in payment for this crime. After telling of how Fafnir, Regan's brother, killed his father, Hreithmar, for this gold and became a dragon, Regan tells of how he fled to the kingdom of Hjalprik and fostered Sigurd. Sigurd tells Regan he will avenge Hreithmar, but only after he has avenged his own father and uncle on Lyngvi and the other sons of Hunding. In the last stanza of this poem, we read that Sigurd carved the bloody eagle, Old Norse Blothagur Orn, insert correct word here, I think I butchered that, on Lyngvi's back. This is a reference to a form of torture in which the victim was laid out flat in a prostrate position and his ribs removed from his back one by one. Battlestir is Odin in disguise. Beast, maybe put a trigger warning on this one for the YouTube. That was kind of graphic. Reginsmal. Now, before we get into this, for those of you who are new here, we normally take turns in reading stanzas and such. So, if you want to read the stanza, just start reading. If you don't, then you're good. I can't read it all, but where's the fun in that? Oh, you have beautiful voices too that don't sound like something out of, I don't even know what, South that.
Anyone who wishes to read tonight, feel free to jump in as we go. Anyone who doesn't, sit still.
See, that's why he gets paid the big bucks. He has words. Reginsmal. Sigurd went to Hjalprik's Remuda and chose a forest that later was named Granny. At this time, Regan, son of Hreithmar, lived in Hjalprik's kingdom. He was more skillful with his hands than any other man, and a dwarf in height. He was wise, grand, and skilled in magic. Regan fostered and educated Sigurd, and loved him well. He told Sigurd about his parents, and about the events when Odin, Loki, and Onir had come to Andvari's Falls. This was a waterfall where an abundance of fish could be found. A dwarf named Andvari lived there for a long time in the form of a pipefish, and fed himself there. Otter was the name of our brother, said Regan, and he often went to the falls in the form of an otter. He had caught a salmon and sat on the bank where he was eating it with his eyes closed. Loki threw a stone and killed him. The Aesir felt very lucky about this, and skinned the otter and made a bag out of the skin. That same evening they came as guests to Hreithmar's house and showed him what they had caught. We captured them and told them their lives if they did not fill that bag with gold and cover it on the outside with gold as well. Then the Aesir sent Loki to acquire the gold. He came to Rand and borrowed her net and went back to Andvari's Falls and threw the net in front of the pipefish, and the fish jumped in. Then Loki said,
What kind of fish is this swimming in the water that doesn't know to avoid a net? Your head will stay on your body if you can get me some gold.
I am named Envar. I am named Andvari, son of Odin. I have been in many waterfalls. A cruel Norn shaped my fate at the beginning. At the beginning, cursed me to live in the water. Tell me this, Andvari said, if you want to go free and live in the halls of men, what should a man get in return if he lies to others? They get a lot in return. All those men who will wade the traitor's river at Ragnarok, they will suffer for a long time if they lie to others in return for their untrue words. Loki saw all the gold that Andvari owned, and after he had taken all of it, Andvari still had one single ring, and Loki took that from him as well. The dwarf then hid inside a stone and said, this gold that Gus used to own will cause the death of 2 brothers and cause grief for 8 kings. No one will enjoy my treasure.
I'm sorry, I had it on a different page. What stanza are we on? Which number?
We just finished with stanza 5.
5.
I just turned the page after I took a note.
There we go. Okay. The gold is delivered, said Loki. We've paid a huge price for my head. I do not foresee happiness for your son. This gold will be the death of you both, Hrathmar said. You gave gifts, but you did not give willingly. You did not give with a whole heart. I would have killed you, both of you, if I'd known it beforehand.
We didn't read the piece here yet.
I'm sorry?
I said we didn't read this part yet.
This part. I can't.
I don't. It's not necessarily stanza. It's just. I don't know what the column.
There's a in between statement between each of the five stanzas.
Oh, that must be something that's in the printed. That's not in the
PDF.
It's like in the middle of actually verse 5. After I enjoy my treasure, the Aesir. It starts with the Aesir gave Hethmer the gold.
For some reason, that's not in the. I've got the ebook from this from Amazon, and that's not in there. Let me grab the actual book here. Just a second here. Grippus. Okay. Okay. The part I have between it is there. Loki saw the gold that Andvari owned, and after he had taken all of it, Andvari still had one single ring. Loki took that from him as well. You just read that part.
Yes, and then there's stanza 5, and then after stanza 5, there's another one.
Yeah. The Aesir gave Hrathmar the gold. They filled the otter skin with gold and set the skin on its feet so they could cover it with gold from the outside. And when this was done, Hrathmar reached forward and saw one whisker that was still visible and told the Aesir to cover it. Odin took the ring and Voronot and covered the whisker with it. The gold is delivered, said Loki. We've paid a huge price for my head. I do not foresee happiness for your son. This gold will be the death of you both. Hrathmar said, you gave gifts, but you did not give willingly, and you did not give with a whole heart. I would have killed you, both of you, if I'd known it beforehand.
Loki said, "It seems to me that it will only get worse. Men will fight over this gold. This gold is fated, I think, to cause hateful news for kings still unborn." "This gold," said Frightmore, "will be mine as long as I live. I'm not afraid of all of your threats. Go home."
Fafnir and Regan asked Hreithmar for some of the treasure in payment for the loss of their brother Otter. He denied their requests, but Fafnir killed Hreithmar with a sword while he slept. Hreithmar called out to his daughters.
"Lying Heath and Laughing Heath, I am dying, but everyone is destined for some torment." Lying Heath answered, "Few sisters will take vengeance against a brother, even for their father."
Have a daughter, said Hreithmar, a wolf-fierce girl if you cannot have a son with a king. You'll need to marry that girl to a man, and at last her son will avenge your sorrow.
Then Hreithmar died, and Fafnir took all the gold. Regan asked for his share in the inheritance from their father, but Fafnir would give him nothing. Regan went to his sister Langheath and asked how he should secure his share of the inheritance. She said, "Talk to your brother pleasantly about the matter. With a friendly attitude, you won't get much from Fafnir if you try to persuade him with a sword."
Regan told Sigurd these things. One day, when Sigurd came to Regan's house, Regan greeted him happily. Regan said, "Here is the son of Sigmund, a clever boy. He's come to my hall. He has more courage than this old man. I suspect this young wolf has hope of good hunting. I will raise him in my house, this noble boy, make a war-brave king out of him. He'll grow up to be the greatest king beneath the sun. The tale of his deeds will be told everywhere."
Sigurd was always with Regan, and Regan told Sigurd about how Fafnir lay on Heath in the form of a dragon. He had a helmet of terror that instilled fear in all living things. Regan made a sword called Gram for Sigurd. This sword was so sharp that he put its blade in the River Rhine, and let a tuft of wool flow downstream onto the blade, and the wool split as if it were water. With this sword, Sigurd cut Regan's anvil in half. After this, Regan encouraged Sigurd to kill Fafnir. Sigurd said, "The sons of Hunding who killed my father and my father-in-law, Eilimi, would laugh out loud if I seemed to care more for golden rings than for vengeance for my father Sigmund." King Hjalfric outfitted Sigurd with ships and men for his mission of avenging his father. They were caught in a bad storm and delayed at a certain headland. A man stood on the rock and said, "Who is it there riding those ships on the high waves, on the roaring sea? Those ships are sure sweating with the trouble. I doubt that they will stand up to the wind."
Regan answered, "Here I am with Sigurd on these ships. This breeze will blow us to our deaths. A high wave crashes on deck. The ships will wreck. Who is asking?"
"They called me Battle Stirrer when young. Volsung set a table for the ravens. You can call me Man on the Rock, or Burden, or Spellcaster. I want to ride." They went to land.
Go ahead.
They went to land, and the man came onto the ship, and the weather immediately improved. Sigurd said, Tell me, Battle Stirrer, since you know the omens of gods and humans, what is the best kind of omen when men are about to fight? Battle Stirrer said, there are many good omens before one goes into battle if you know how to recognize them. A man with a faithful following of black-winged ravens will fight a winning battle. There's a second good omen if you are outside, out on the road, and you see two men standing in the yard ready to make battle.
There is a
There's a
third
third
omen if you hear a wolf howl under the limbs of an ash. You and not your enemy will have good luck if you see him first.
No one should leave for battle facing the setting sun. Bold men have victories if they can see or line up in formation.
You are in grave danger if you stumble on your way to battle. It means that evil spirits stand on either side of you and want to see you get hurt. Every man should keep himself well kept and clean, and eat up in the morning. You never know where you'll be in the evening, so it's bad to leave home hungry.
Sigurd had a great battle against Lyngvi, son of Hunning, and his brothers. Lyngvi and his three brothers were killed. After the battle, Regin said, now the bloody eagle is carved with a bitter blade on the back of the killer of Sigmund. No better man than Sigurd has ever soaked the earth with blood and has set a table for the ravens. Sigurd went home to Hjalprik. Then Regin encouraged Sigurd to kill Fafnir. And if you tune in next week, same time, same channel, we'll get to the Battle of Fafnir, which is one of my favorites. So that ends the reading for this evening. I'm sorry about the confusion there. For whatever reason, it didn't. When I was copying the words from my Kindle here, it didn't copy the stuff in between the paragraphs. I have no idea why.
You sound good. We got it and stuff.
So
This is still one of my favorite poems because it also is tied to the sort of the wolf thing, and so that
right.
and this go hand in hand. So I love the two of them.
Mhm. Anybody got any questions, comments, concerns, all that good stuff before I get to mine?
I've always enjoyed the bit at the beginning when Loki catches Angvari and says, "What kind of fish is this that doesn't know how to avoid a net?" Because it's such a delicious bit of. I don't even know if it would be considered foreshadowing. It's a nice parallel to how Loki is eventually caught.
Yeah, that was one of my notes. Was this before or after he turned himself into a salmon? And did he just take the idea from them?
I think it's it's hard to tell, as far as a timeline goes, because things are so cyclical and you have accounts that repeat other accounts, and it's really hard to set up a definitive timeline. But I think this was probably before he was caught.
And then, go ahead.
Well, this is the story of bringing greed to the world too. So the ring is greed, and that's how greed gets brought in. So it's before Loki gets caught. It's very early story.
Beast is about to laugh at me. I've been like, I'll start reading or I'll start saying something and I stop to let the other person who I hear talking talk. There's no one else talking. My phone is doing an echo for some reason and I'm hearing myself.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly
I had
does
some-
make a good point, though, that I think it was Kelly. Was it Kelly that said that about the greed?
Very yes, that was me.
Yeah, I actually hadn't I hadn't caught that. I hadn't really thought about it in that regard. So thank you for that.
So the ring is the green that brings greed into the world. And in the story, Loki actually, in the other tellings of the story, Loki keeps the ring, and then it goes out, and it's the what brings greed into the world is that ring. And in fact, that's where Tolkien got the idea of the rings. And he mentioned that he actually got the idea for the rings from this story.
Kelly, real quick, random off the topic question. What are your pronouns?
He and him.
Okay. Thank you.
I knew the bit about Tolkien taking the idea from this, but I hadn't, for some reason, made the mental connection between this being like the introduction of greed into the world. I have another thought, but it's way off topic, so I'm gonna say it.
Well, what is it?
Well, I was thinking about the bit in the Voluspa when she talks about Golvig and how that is commonly thought of as the introduction of greed because of the connection to gold.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those fascinating things for me how everything intertwines.
They're joint stories. And unfortunately, now here's something that a lot of people don't really realize. The Havamal and our oldest of these poems and the Prose Edda and the Poetic Edda are 200 years after the Scandinavia. It's like looking at the stories we have of George Washington. How many are true and how many are not? We don't know. And so
Right.
a lot of these were the reason that he wrote it is he was trying to preserve poetic form so we could remember the Kinnings. And so luckily we have it, but it's very fragmentary. Also, the sort of the go ahead. I'm so sorry.
I was just going to point out that it mentions Rand, and this is one of the few times that she is ever actually mentioned for the people of YouTube.
Yep.
Go ahead.
In the stories, Ran as a goddess is only mentioned, I think, 4 times, 4 times is all she's ever mentioned. And most of them are in passing like this.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate what we have versus what was lost because, like, clearly when this poem was written, someone knew who Rand was. But the information that we have on her is so limited.
The information we have in general is really limited, which is sad.
The other thing I love about this story, though, is if you go to the Sword of the Volsung, that ties into this story, and so it gives sort of that rest of that. It ties in some of the pieces of this in with that, and they work together. And the Sword of the Volsung is where we get Sleeping Beauty.
Right. That was last week's that we went through and talked about.
I have in my notes Loki and life lessons ? Because asking moral questions like that is kind of a strange thing for him, and most of the lore, not all, but most. And I just have that in my notes, just for the sake of having it, I guess. I like the conversation about the lying and stuff. I don't. It's an odd conversation.
What other questions did you have down? Mooney?
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking through my notes. That's why I write them down, because I don't ever remember at the end.
Another point that I do like in this story is the one in verse 7 about giving willingly. That's something that we forget when we do bloats and that, or we do any kind of sacrifice, or it has to be something done willingly, not because I have to. It's something need to. It's something I want to do.
Right.
Exactly. That's when it means the most. I have under that one, actually. It's actually under that one is where my questions were. Where Loki was talking about, he said, "It seems to me that it will only get worse. Men will fight over this gold. This gold is fated, I think, to cause hateful news for kings still unborn." That is again referencing that it is the ring that brings greed into the world, as I said before. But I have on the question is like, is that a threat or a promise, or what is that? How does Loki know that? Um, but at the same time, he is a deity of sorts based on who you ask these. Anyway, and yeah, just how does Loki know?
I think it's not so much a threat as it is an observation based on the conversation that is happening in the room. There's clearly a lot of desire for this particular bit of gold. There was another word that my brain was trying to come up with there, and it couldn't. But anyway, I think it also points to the idea that in our lore, the gods are not omniscient. They learn as much from traveling as they do from magic or other sources, or just asking people questions. And I think it's more of an observation that he's seeing this and going, I don't think this is going to get any better. I don't think people are going to stop fighting about this anytime soon.
Yes. I do like at the end what Frostmother says. He's just like, "It's like, I'm not afraid of your threats. Go home." That's just. If only other people told that to Loki sometimes.
I think a great deal of things could have been avoided if people had just told Loki to go home occasionally. But
Right.
Unfortunately, that is not the way things play out.
But think about this: is Loki is the catalyst. So whenever you have and you put a with the catalyst, and the catalyst makes something happen. That's Loki.
Oh yeah, I mean he's the catalyst in 90% of the shenanigans.
Things. But I have theories about that Beast most times disagrees with me on. my UPG, my theory has nothing to do with anything else. But the fact of a lot of Loki's shenanigans and him starting crap that he really didn't have is he's trying to fit in. He is not a he is not an Aesir. He is a Jotun. That is what he is. That's where he comes from. He was I forget the correct terminology, but we're going to use the word adopted into this through Odin, and they have that blood brother relationship, and he is granted a place with them, kind of. And I feel like he's just trying to fit in and prove that he can do things just as much as they can, but it ends up backfiring, and he just looks like an idiot most of the time. Or it ends up bad for everybody, including himself. How many times has this man almost lost his head because he tried to be Billy Bad Goat and it didn't work out? And that's just me and my theory of he's tried to fit in. Is what he did excusable? Was it still bad? Yes, for sure. It was still bad. No excuses there. However, the rest of them haven't done that great of stuff. They have done their share of bad things too. And again, for me, it's a trying to fit in, has the Jotun spirit though, all of those things added together, things backfire. But that's just me and my things, and kings from nowhere. I made little notes by all the omens because I like superstitions. They're fun.
I think you and Kelly are closer in theory than might be obvious. In that Kelly referenced Loki as being the catalyst, which I've always seen him as. He is the necessary spark that puts things in motion.
For sure.
He is the little bit of chaos thrown into order. If we look at the Aesir as representing order, and the Jotun as representing the primal energies, forces of the world. Loki is that little bit of chaos that keeps things moving in the direction they're supposed to go, whether or not he knows the direction they're supposed to go or not. Who can say?
Precisely. And he and Odin share a similar problem of asking too many questions that they really didn't want to know the answer to, but they thought they did. And in the act of question, what was the thing that I said? The act of knowing you're doomed therefore seals it. And here we are. And it works very well with the Norns, and I agree. He is a very necessary thread of chaos for everything to fall into place as it's supposed to. And again, he and Odin that asked too many questions ask questions that they really didn't want to know the answer to, but now they do, and it's too late. Seals.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precise.
When I started practice, I had a very negative view of Loki. The kindred I first started with had a very you don't in any ritual you don't ever toast Loki, or it was a very negative view, and I've now have grown to the point where I view him very necessary for me. Like I went through a divorce, and it was a really nasty one and very painful, and I viewed that as Loki being kind of like that whole chaos helped me become who I am today. And without him kind of giving me that push, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Precisely. He has his respect that he is due. for sure.
It makes you look at you don't want to look at.
I've often associated Loki with the Kenaz rune.
I
That-
do as well.
Yeah, that brand that could go off in any direction. And my first, I never really worked with him until my first night running the kitchen by myself. I'm a cook, for those that don't know. The first night running the kitchen by myself, everything was going great, and I was like, all right, I can do this. It's all good. Everything's under control. And then both of my toasters cranked themselves up to 10. My flat top suddenly was entirely too hot. My charbroiler was on fire, and the oven went out.
Oh goodness.
Yes, and I was like, what is happening? And I just kind of got this little like niggle in the back of my brain that was like, you've forgotten how to thrive. And I was like, okay, I see what this is. This is that need for a little bit of chaos, just a little bit of the unexpected, to push us to grow, to push us to be better, do better, stretch ourselves beyond what we think we're capable of, and just handle it.
I had something I was going to say and I missed it. I hate when that happens. Oh, going back to the Kenneth thing. That's what it was. Yeah, my first my beginnings into this was with Loki. My very first deity interaction was with Lady Hell, and from there came Loki. And the first thing that I read about them at all was with the Kenaz rune, and he was called Witness of Flame in the things that I read, and he was associated with Kenaz rune because that is the rune of fire and such. And it's one of my favorite runes because I like fire in general. If you see me in the Discord, I set fires and things, and it's fun. I have many scars from being set on fire by silly string. That was also not fun. Beast, questions, comments, concerns. I know you have them. I feel your dad stares from here.
Nothing needs to be gotten into here. You know my stance on Loki. I don't forbid the speaking of him, people sharing their UPGs about it. That's all perfectly fine, because that's how we grow and learn. You do know that my understanding of Loki is different than your understanding of Loki, and that's okay.
I do. But I was asking about the rest of it. Any parallels that you made? Any rabbit holes that your brain went down on anything? Thought processes of such? You are our religious studies person. Let's religious study.
One of the negative sides of this is that I have read the story so many times that it just is what it is now. There's not really many questions left in my brain for this. Because you know me, when I get onto something new, I fixate on it and delve into every different aspect I can think of. And this one has been one of my favorites. The next one, like I said earlier, the story of Fafnir is definitely my favorite. And there's not really many questions that come up with it anymore. Not that my old brain can think of.
What is some nuggets of wisdom you can give to our people of YouTube? Is the better question.
Read the story, as with all the stories, read them with an open mind. Don't take them just at the face value of the words printed. Look at the words, digest the words, think of what they actually represent and what the story as a whole is trying to get across. Don't get caught up on this date at this exact time this person walked 57 steps in this direction and try to make it an actual historical event type of thing. Take it as the story that it is. Since a lot of us come from Christian backgrounds, think of it as a parable and look at the story behind the story. Look at the overall theme and the what's the word? Moral of the story. And learn from it what you need to learn from it. A year from now, come back and read it again. Do it with the same open-eyed expression, and you'll find that you learn something different. It's just like watching your favorite movie. Every time you watch it, you catch some other minor detail that you didn't catch the 73 times before that you watched it. The next time that you watch Frozen, I'm sure you'll find something else new and exciting that'll make you smile.
I think we let that one go.
Yeah.
I can't watch Frozen. I cry.
I see what you did there.
Uh,
I take it you like Frozen a lot.
Yeah.
I have two girls. One is 6 and one will be 2 in April. I watch Frozen about 5 times a week.
She says it's because of the kids.
That's what I blame it on.
it's a great movie. There are a lot of good lessons buried in that movie, and in the second one, which made me bawl like a baby, and I haven't been able to watch it since.
I
think we need to have a discussion one day about how much Frozen actually, as far as in their background details, how much they actually got correct about Norsemen and stuff, lore and symbols and things, because that's the thing. I can't words, but that's the whole thing. They literally have it at Disney World. Like, obviously, Disney World is like probably not the best source of information because, of course, it's not. But it's literally in the same spot with mythology thing. I'm sorry.
Are you about to bring up the fact that they turned the Norway Pavilion and the Maelstrom ride into a Frozen thing? Because I have a personal bone about that.
The same. I feel like it should have been 2 separate. It's like, you can have both. You can have both.
For the sake of our lovely listeners on YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording at this point, so they don't have to go through this tirade as well. We will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Moving on with the story of Fafnir. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Everyone, feel free to hang out.